Sounds spooky? Excellent radio, podcasts, and commercial-free hits. Classic Halloween playlists. Truly terrifying Halloween on iHeartRadio. Take us everywhere if you dare. Easy and free.
This is Encore.
Cool.
The stories behind the songs.
Thank you.
Here's iHeartRadio's Miles Galloway.
All right, partner. Keep on rolling, baby. You know what time it is. I'm Miles Galloway, and this is the story of Limp Bizkit's Rollin. Yes, consider this your public service announcement. This episode is about the kings of nu metal, the royalty of rap rock, and the band responsible for the most red New York Yankee hats sold this side of the millennium. Limp Bizkit. Apologies to the actual New York Yankees. Don't fact check me on that one. I remember being as hardcore a Limp Bizkit fan you could find. I didn't just have the red Yankee hat, I had the red Adidas 3-stripe tracksuit to match. If you've seen any of the footage from either of the Woodstock 99 docs that came out a couple years back, or if you are of a certain age to have lived through it, you'll know that Limp Bizkit, for better or for worse, were a big deal. Like, really big. You can head back into the Encore archives in our Evanescence Linkin Park Sum 41 or Finger 11 episodes to get a sense of how popular aggressive metal-tinged hip-hop appropriating music was in the early 2000s. But one could argue that none of it would have been given such a wide blast radius in that era if it wasn't for the groundwork laid down by Fred Durst and the boys. Of course, purists will tell you bands like Beastie Boys, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Rage Against the Machine, and even Faith No More were the true innovators of the genre, and they'd be right. But where we're going, we're not bothering with such high-minded concepts as innovation or musicality. After all, the song we're talking about today is from a record called Chocolate Starfish and the Hot Dog Flavoured Water, released in an era where good music was defined as any song that had too many swears on it, basically. Or as Fred himself would say,
yeah, I don't know, man. I think we're definitely at the bottom of the list. We're without a doubt one of the worst bands
Very modest.
probably ever created in the history of music.
John, you could say something if you'd like.
So, let's go back a bit, shall we? Limp Bizkit was formed in the mid-90s by a youngish William Frederick Durst and his friends Sam Rivers and John Otto. Fred was an avid skateboarder, amateur rapper, beatboxer, and DJ who had a real love of punk, hip-hop, and heavy metal. After writing a few songs with Otto and Rivers, guitarist Wes Borland would eventually join the group permanently after a rotating cast of temporary axemen came and went. Fun fact, one of those guitarists was a man named Terry Balsamo, who would eventually replace Evanescence's Ben Moody when the partnership between Moody and Amy Lee would break down in the early 2000s. Limp Bizkit, which was named by Durst to specifically turn snobby listeners off from listening to their output, became a cult favorite of the Jacksonville, Florida music scene, particularly due to Fred's borderline used car salesman marketing of the band, going everywhere from clubs to record stores to local high schools to promote the group, often pretending to be the band's non-existent manager at the time, and partially due to their smash-mouth covers of Paula Abdul's Straight Up and George Michael's Faith. It also didn't hurt that from the very beginning, Wes Borland would perform in outrageous and bizarre costumes, from full-body paint to every combination of wigs, suits, masks, and makeup you could ever imagine. It's like his wardrobe was a spirit of Halloween. He was really a must-see attraction on stage. Fred, who I've failed to mention, also fancied himself as a tattoo artist, because of course he did, managed to smooth talk his way into a beer and tattooing session with nu metal forefathers Korn when they were in town. Korn didn't like Fred's body art, but they did like his songs, taking the time to listen to Limp Bizkit's demo tape and eventually inviting them on tour with them. In order to beef up their sound and add a little more hip-hop flair, former House of Pain turntablist DJ Lethal was soon added to the group. Wes Borland would briefly leave Limp Bizkit due to creative differences, but would soon rejoin the group after a newly signed Limp Bizkit had a nearly fatal tour van accident on their way to record their debut album. Produced by the godfather of nu metal, Ross Robinson, and funded mostly by Korn's bassist Fieldy, Limp Bizkit's debut, $3 Bill Y'all, was released in 1997 and included the singles Counterfeit and a studio version of their infamous cover of George Michael's Faith. The album was successful enough, and although Faith was all over rock radio at the time, you'd be forgiven for thinking Limp Bizkit was nothing to write home about, with AllMusic summing the record up as one with not many original ideas, but they do the sound well. They have a powerful rhythm section and memorable hooks, most of which make up for the uneven songwriting. By 1999, though, nu metal was in full force, and Limp Bizkit was leading the charge. Durst would be offered the role of senior VP at Interscope Records, and would be instrumental in signing bands like Stained, Cold, and Puddle of Mud. I'll forgive you if you're not entirely familiar with their respective discographies. Infamous pre-meme song Nookie was released in June 1999 as the band's lead single off their sophomore album Significant Other, and redefined the band in the rap rock era as a cheesy little song described by Fred Durst as about my ex-girlfriend, how she treated me like shit, and I couldn't leave her. Wouldn't get over it, he said. She screwed my friends and used me for my money. I tried to figure out why I did it, and I figured I did it all for the nookie. Nookie would help push Limp Bizkit and Significant Other to multi-platinum status in the US, as well as bestowing the boys with their first Grammy Award nomination for Best Hard Rock Performance. And they lost to Metallica. Fair enough, I guess. Follow-up singles Rearranged and End Together Now featuring Method Man would further show off the band's rock and rap sides and help legitimize them as a band with their finger on the pulse of the music zeitgeist. Here's Fred talking with Rick Campanelli in 1999.
We're seeing a lot of the new rock music out there paying homage to the hip-hop. The initial reaction of the hip-hop community, how do you think they reacted to this? Rock borrowing or integrating hip-hop into the styles. How do you think they? Because it's sort of like not stealing in a way, but stealing.
I think that line's kind of dissolved. It's a hip-hop world right now.
Yeah.
And that's the way it is. And I think if you're in a rock band and you're bringing hip-hop into rock music, you really need to have hip-hop as part of you really need to have the swing and really pull it off for real. You know what I mean? Instead of just some singer in a rock band just going, I'm going to rap, and they're rapping, or some hip-hop band going, hey, man, we're going to put some heavy guitars in here because we're just going to put some rock music in. And that's bullshit. So what it is it's like, I don't know, it's just this thing that's happening right now. It's like
I feel the people who do it not just because it's cool. You know what I mean?
They do it because
just because you can tell they like that. Yeah.
Something about this band, man. It's like we found this balance, this right balance with hip hop and rock and melodies and just his vibes. And I don't know how we did it, but we're very lucky, man. The chemistry with this band is unbelievable. This new record is, man, I'm feeling it hard. Either everybody's gonna hate it and think we suck, or they're gonna love it.
We
do suck
too. Everyone's waiting.
Our first record sucks. I mean, what can we say? We were a brand new band. We were touring. We went in our garage for 6 days, wrote the record, went and recorded it. Bam, didn't give a damn. Yeah. Went on tour, just touring. And what we learned on tour was like a lot of that stuff didn't work live, or people couldn't understand me or connect with me because the words were like, "You preaching noise about the words that you don't want to," instead of "You preaching noise about the words that you don't want to hear." It's like, okay, man, you got to break it down. What they like, what our fans like, is what we need to give them. We don't need to make music just for ourselves. We need to make it for ourselves and make it mainly for our fans.
Despite all of this, it's Significant Other's fourth single, Break Stuff, that perhaps lives on in infamy. Not actually released as a single until the year 2000, Break Stuff was simply an album track on Significant Other by the time the Woodstock Music Festival rolled around in Rome, New York, in the summer of '99. Already a total disaster from the get-go, thanks to now well-documented infrastructure, sanitation, price gouging, security, overheating, and overcrowding issues that could be defined as straight-up negligence. Acts such as Limp Bizkit, Korn, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Metallica, DMX, and Kid Rock took the stage over the 4-day mega festival experience. It's now estimated that there were around 400,000 attendees at the festival, even though capacity was listed at around 250,000. As you might imagine, as any sane person might, an isolated, cramped festival of naively marketed peace and music became a pressure cooker for absolute chaos, with multiple cases of vandalism, property damage, violence, sexual assaults, and even deaths reported at the festival. From day one, it looked like total anarchy. Korn, DMX, Insane Clown Posse, and Limp Bizkit in particular quickly became the figures of blame due to the aggressive nature of their music, with the organizers claiming they had no idea that was the style of music they'd be playing, and that a voracious and desperate crowd would go that wild. Durst was specifically vilified for his role in the chaos, for not doing enough to try and calm down the crowds. First, after performing their song 1999, Durst is quoted on stage as saying, "They want to ask us, to mellow out a little bit. They say too many people are getting hurt. Don't let anybody get hurt, but I don't think you should mellow out." Mellowing out? That's what Alanis Morissette had you motherfuckers do. If someone falls, pick 'em up. Then in the most infamous of on-stage addresses, right before the breakdown in Break Stuff, before he proudly asserts he packed a motherfucking chainsaw in the lyrics, Durst proclaims, "Time to reach deep down inside and take all that negative energy, and let that shit out your fucking system. You got girl problems, you got boy problems, you got parent problems, you got boss problems, job problems, you got a problem with me, you got a problem with yourself. It's time to take all that negative energy and put it the out." Sorry if I got a bit carried away there. Finally, after also admittedly calling for the crowd to let out all of their positive energy during a performance of Nookie, Fred attempts to crowd surf on a piece of plywood in the sea of moshing fans. Following the set, the police informed Durst that fans at the very least had destroyed parts of the festival infrastructure in an effort to provide him with his makeshift plywood surfboard. But Durst maintains that he didn't witness anyone being hurt, saying, "I didn't see anybody getting hurt. You don't see that. When you're looking out at a sea of people and the stage is 20 feet in the air and you're performing and you're feeling your music, how do they expect us to see something bad going on?" Much Music's sister station, Music Plus at the time, was on the ground at Woodstock 99 and got an immediate reaction from Durst as well.
Yeah, I know. I heard, I didn't hear, actually. What is it? What happened through all this craziness? The people started to rip off the soundboard or something?
They started to literally tear the place apart, and it was pretty intense.
Yeah, watching it from up above or on the screens was really, really scary. Did you get scared at one point?
No way.
No?
That's why I had to go down and get in.
Yeah, that's why you were riding on the boards. You actually just decided to jump in and ride on the plywood boards.
It looks so fun. I mean, I want to be a part of that too.
Really?
Know?
So do you feel like you're actually interacting and getting the Woodstock experience, or is that not what the Woodstock thing is all about?
I'd rather be further out in the crowd, but I didn't get far out. It was really crazy.
Yeah, it was. Especially seeing you during Faith, just trying to get a grip on things. Did you expect it to be this crazy? I mean, the new record just skyrocketed up the charts. You kicked the shit out of the Backstreet Boys off the charts and everybody else. Did you expect it to be all this big?
No, I didn't expect it, but I'm very grateful that it is that big, and all we can do is think about the future and keep delivering something better.
Definitely.
For a while, it was all people could talk about, with Much's Suk Yin Lee grilling Wes Borland soon after.
I did see you at Woodstock, and your first single, Rearranged, was kind of the video was a response to Woodstock. But how did you feel when everything was going down in terms of your performance and the frenzy of the crowd? What was your perspective while performing at Woodstock?
A lot of what happened at Woodstock, we didn't really know it was going on because we just sort of saw a big swarm, swarming sea of people. It's kind of hard to see one thing or another, to distinguish what's going on. We didn't realize that the sound booth tower was being raided, and we didn't know where the sheets of plywood were coming from. It really didn't seem like you guys knew what was going on at all. People were apparently getting a little flustered on the sides of the stage and telling us, this is something's going on, and we're like,
when did it finally hit you? Was it after the fact when you read the?
We didn't realize that anything like that had happened until press releases started coming out, and we went, what? And Limp Bizkit gets blamed for everything that happened Sunday night when they weren't even there at Woodstock.
The spectre of Woodstock 99 has followed Limp Bizkit around to this very day, with Durst acknowledging the performance as recently as 2021, where prior to firing up Break Stuff at Lollapalooza in Chicago, Durst reminds the crowd, let me make this clear. This is not Woodstock 99. All that bullshit. But as they say, there's no such thing as bad publicity, and there was also no stopping the nu metal revolution.
Halloween on iHeartRadio. Sounds spooky? Excellent radio, podcasts, and commercial-free hits. Classic Halloween playlists. Truly terrifying Halloween on iHeartRadio. Take us everywhere if you dare. Easy and free.
Within a little over a year post-Significant Other, Limp Bizkit was back, and more aggressive than ever, with their third LP, the aforementioned Chocolate Starfish and the Hot Dog Flavoured Water. Much like the band's name itself, I'm not going to put you through the complete etymology of why the album was named the way it was, but for those who unfortunately already have an inclination, Fred Durst has admitted he nicknamed himself Chocolate Starfish because people often already call him a jerk. Yeah, let's go with that. Released as a double single with the frat boy anthem My Generation, no, not the Who song, Rollin, air raid vehicle was unleashed on the world on September 5th, 2000. And how does one describe Rollin? Well, first and foremost, it's unabashedly a nu metal anthem full of soaring, down-tuned guitars and hip-hop swagger. Lyrically, it's not very complex, with a hokey-pokey style chorus, move in, move out, hands up, hands down, back up, paired with, of course, the song's main lyrical directive, keep rollin', 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 as the predominant themes of the song, but also a braggadocious ode to the very concept of Limp Bizkit itself, with Fred Durst rhyming about how much the kids love Limp Bizkit, jonesing for their next fix of rap rock excess. In the bridge, for example, Durst calls out all the Limp Bizkit fans around the world to show the band love, including, in no particular order, the ladies, the fellas, the lovers, the haters, the hot mamas, the pimp daddies, the rockers, the hip-hoppers, and of course, the people who don't give a fuck, naturally. Paired on the airwaves with My Generation, which is kind of the same song but with less celebration and more aggression, Limp Bizkit were probably the only rock band in the world at the time that could get away with releasing music purely for the vibes. Speaking of vibes, I think it's important to note that the reason for the official title of the song we're talking about in this episode is called Rollin, Air Raid Vehicle, is because there are actually two very distinct versions of this magnum opus on Chocolate Starfish, the less talked about Urban Assault Vehicle version of Rollin, produced by hip-hop royalty Swiss Beats, sits at a lofty 6 minutes and 22 seconds and features the likes of Redman, Method Man, and DMX in all their glory, rapping over a slowed and slinky hip-hop beat. It would eventually make its way onto the very first Fast and the Furious soundtrack. As we've discussed on Encore before, the early 2000s were the golden age of the music video, and Rollin certainly gave fans their visual money's worth. Ben Stiller opens the video by approaching a solitary Fred Durst sitting on a bench near a valet sign. Stiller assumes Durst is a valet driver and throws him the keys to his Rolls Royce in a pretentious Hollywood fashion. Fred commandeers the car, and we're shown beauty shots of New York City before being greeted by the band on the roof of one of the twin towers of the World Trade Center, but more on that later. While Fred joyrides around the city, he picks up a comically swagged out Wes Borland and the rest of the Limp Bizkit gang to embark on more hijinks before cutting between equally iconic and ironic shots of Fred Durst on a video set complete with giant disco balls, flashing lights, and tightly choreographed female dancers all dressed as, you guessed it, Fred Durst. Long seen as a 2000s counterculture fashion icon, Durst's insistence on wearing New York Yankee hats at all times had been a staple of the Limp Bizkit uniform for years, so it only made sense for the outfit of baggy jeans, oversized t-shirts, and his signature red hat to be immortalized in music video. The dance moves on display are comically bad by any standard, but in the sober light of the 2020s, it's actually kind of charming. Despite the band's reputation, nothing particularly offensive happens in the video. I mean, they technically steal the car, I guess, but come on, Stiller had it coming. Reflecting back on it a decade or so later, Durst and Borland explained to NME that the video was supposed to be ironic, a gentle rib on hip-hop music videos and bling culture, but they weren't entirely sure people got that.
Well, believe it or not, at the time, there were so many certain styles of hip-hop videos that were coming out and saturating the market, and it was a chance, I thought, to kind of poke fun at those types of videos with a rock band.
and go bigger than any of them have gone. You know, what's bigger? On top of the World Trade Center, you know, helicopters and the whole deal, and some, you know, what cars are important in that world, it seems. And you go, okay, well, the Rolls Royce. Well, what would we do on a Rolls Royce? Act like a bunch of jackasses, you know?
Yeah, we were throwing money into the street, like fake money, and people were almost getting hit by cars running into the street to retrieve it, like thinking it was real money. Do you remember that?
I do. But you know, we thought we at times put this cheeky element into our stuff, a little bit of sarcasm, and it seems for the most part, almost everyone has looked over it.
Unfortunately, unbeknownst to anyone at the time, there would soon be a far deeper meaning to such a light-hearted video. Perhaps one of the most iconic MTV VMAs of all time was the one that took place on September 6th, 2001, just a year after Rollin was released to the public. We've talked about it before. This was the year that Christina Aguilera and company won Video of the Year for Lady Marmalade, and the first real time we got a glimpse into the mind of ex-Tina. Speaking of pop stars shedding their skin, this edition of the VMAs is also the iconic Slave for You year, where Britney performed the sultry track with an albino Burmese python draped around her neck. It was at that year's ceremony Limp Bizkit took home the prize for Best Rock Video for Rollin', and according to the band, also received a kind letter from the World Trade Center itself for showcasing the building in such a mainstream way. Then, of course, within days, the unthinkable happened, with the attacks of 9/11 destroying the building and changing New York City, America, and the world forever. Here's Fred and Wes speaking with NME again about the surreal bond the Rollin' video will share with WTC, and, in a weird way, the before times forever.
Yeah, and that video had life for about 1 year, and then the World Trade Center...
Exactly 1 year, actually.
Yeah, exactly 1 year, and we got... we actually won a Moon Man at the MTV Awards on September 7th. And there was got a nice letter from the World Trade Center staff, for, congratulations. For
2011.
And we flew out on the 8th or the 9th. And then 3 days later, bam.
We just got that letter too from them, and saying thank you for letting us be a small part of your video, and very interesting time in all of our lives at that time.
Yeah,
and we didn't know. We were just on some magic carpet, barely holding on by a thread, not knowing what the fuck is going on.
Well, they quit playing that video like right away. That was it. The video was off the air as soon as that happened.
Eventually, as the world healed, Rollin' would be allowed back into video rotation. But as the events of 9/11 touched every facet of life, there is no doubt the music industry felt shockwaves. Here's a candid Limp Bizkit with George Stroumboulopoulos in late 2001.
Because will it be relevant with people's emotions now? Because we're not just upset about things we used to be. Now there's kind of a different vibe to it. Do you think people can keep up?
I definitely think so. There's just a different wave in music right now. Things are kind of, especially I feel sorry for all the rock bands out there right now. They're in a heavy because record companies are looking for the, peachy, let the birds fly. It's coming to some flower rock thing where it's the birds and the bees and the waterfalls and the oceans.
Well, they want to associate heavy rock and aggression with the bad things happening in the world, and I think that's bullshit. I think that's not it at all. I think if your message is to provoke physical violence or death or killing, I think that's something to filter through now. I think, come on, man, we're really lucky to be standing here breathing right now. This world's going crazy. Humanity is the key. But it should just make you a little more grateful to be alive, and we should come together and bond as human beings.
Although Rollin' would peak at a meager 65 on the Billboard Hot 100, Limp Bizkit were able to ride the wave of the new millennium in style, with Chocolate Starfish and the hot dog Flavoured water going platinum in its first week, and 4 times platinum within the first 2 months of release. Thanks to their particularly prolific 1999 to 2001, the success of Rollin', My Generation, and 2001's legendary wrestling anthem, My Way, which was used to massive success at the peak of the wrestling boom of the early 2000s, Chocolate Starfish would do another $2 million in album sales in the 2 years following the album's release. The album's success impacted their back catalogue by the millions as well, boosting the sales of the already 5 times platinum Significant Other up by another $2 million, and even pushing $3 Bill Y'all up by a cool $1 million around the turn of the millennium. To say that the album had mixed reviews would be an understatement, with Rolling Stone giving the record a solid 3.5 stars, noting Chocolate Starfish and the hot dog flavored water is looser and livelier and just plain better than anything they've ever tried before, making Fred Durst a believable high school anti-hero for our time. Kerrang, however, quickly named the album the worst of the year, Limp Bizkit the worst band of the year, and Fred Durst as the very British arse of the year. Entertainment Weekly went a bit more existential, posing the question, unsatisfying as they are, Chocolate Starfish's stylistic detours have more than a suggestion of self-preservation to them. What happens in another year or two when the rap metal audience grows up? Will fans still want this music, or will bands like Limp Bizkit wind up in the closet next to the Giselle Bundchen posters? Ultimately, it wouldn't take long for time to answer that question for us. By 2003, Limp Bizkit would be usurped by Linkin Park as the kings of nu metal, and heavy music fans would quickly trade in the self-aggrandizing sounds of rap rock for music that landed more on the spectrum of self-serious to self-loathing, as a wave of emo, screamo, and garage rock revival began to fill up the CD towers and iTunes libraries of mainstream rock fans. The band would continue to release music to very little fanfare in the years that followed, although they would eventually just about limp over the line to platinum status. For 2003's results may vary. By 2006, Limp Bizkit would go on hiatus, reuniting in 2009 to do sporadic live performances throughout the 2010s, and even briefly signed to Lil Wayne's Cash Money Records to release a fever dream of a collaboration with Wheezy in 2013 called Ready to Go. In 2021, while we were all still tucked away in semi-lockdown, a decidedly middle-aged Limp Bizkit returned out of nowhere with a delightfully titled album, Still Sucks. The album's lead single, Dad Vibes, was as zany and as self-aware as ever, leaning heavily into the trope that, well, they were a bunch of middle-aged men making music nobody likes anymore. And while this didn't exactly revitalize the band to the top of the charts, the album was positively reviewed, with metal outlets Loudwire and Metal Hammer putting it at a lofty number 4 of the best metal albums of the year. Even Limp Bizkit's Super Haters of the Year 2000 Kerrang! Magazine had something nice-ish to say about the band's most recent output, stating, "Haters gonna hate, but really, this knowingly middle-aged iteration of Limp Bizkit is far more likable and less obnoxious than their younger self. But even so, they've lost none of their big Durst energy, and the knowing winks have only become bigger and knowinger." With nu metal going through a bit of a renaissance thanks to Gen Z and the power of TikTok, will we see a rolling redo anytime soon? Well, anything is possible, and to that I say, all right, partner. I'm Miles Galloway, and that was the story of Limp Bizkit's Rollin.
Encore is an iHeartRadio Canada podcast. Subscribe to this podcast on iHeartRadio or wherever you get your podcasts. Download the iHeartRadio app for more great podcasts just like these.
Halloween on iHeartRadio. Sounds spooky? Excellent radio, podcasts, and commercial-free hits. Classic Halloween playlists. Truly terrifying Halloween on iHeartRadio. Take us everywhere if you dare. Easy and free.